The applause was deafening, the crystal award cool in my trembling hand, 15 years of relentless work, culminating in the single, perfect moment. Then, my mother, Sarah, burst in, heels clicking like gunshots, and my entire world exploded. The convention center stage, usually a place of triumph, transformed into a glaring spotlight on my family's ugliest secrets. Hundreds of faces stared, cameras flashed, and the air crackled with a sick, surreal energy. Then, Sarah's voice, amplified by the very microphone I held, boomed across the hall, "You need to give your brother your house right now. Liam's getting married and deserves a proper home." A collective gasp ripped through the audience. My father, David, his face a mask of rage I'd never seen, gripped my arm, his fingers digging in. "Liam has sacrificed everything for this family," he hissed. "The least you can do is help him start his life properly." I pulled away, my voice barely a whisper. "We're doing this here?" Her eyes blazed. She'd always favored my younger brother, Liam, but this was beyond anything. Her hand shot out, snatching the crystal plaque. Time slowed. She raised it high. "If you won't help your family, this means nothing." It shattered against the polished stage, fragments glittering like cruel tears under the lights. The silence was absolute, horrified. I stood amidst the debris, a red recording light on a phone camera visible in the crowd. Security finally moved, escorting them out. The presenter, mortified, offered a replacement, but the rest of the ceremony blurred into an awkward, painful haze. My phone buzzed incessantly with texts from relatives demanding I comply. The house they wanted wasn't just property. I'd bought that Victorian 5 years earlier, when the neighborhood was still affordable. Every renovation was my own work, evenings and weekends. I'd restored the original hardwood, retiled both bathrooms, installed custom shelving, redesigned the kitchen. My garden, once an overgrown mess, became my peaceful sanctuary where I sketched new designs. Meanwhile, Liam had dropped out of college twice and cycled through 6 jobs in 4 years. My parents funded his lifestyle, covered his rent, made excuses for every failure. Now, he was engaged to a woman named Chloe, who apparently expected a fully renovated home as a wedding gift from me. The phone calls and texts didn't stop all week. Relatives I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly had strong opinions about my family obligations. Aunt Carol left a voicemail calling me selfish. Cousin Mark sent a lengthy email, detailing how disappointed my deceased grandmother would be. Uncle Robert, my father's brother, showed up at my design firm, trying to guilt me in front of colleagues. I changed my number and blocked them all. Liam eventually called from a number I didn't recognize. His voice held that familiar, wheedling tone he perfected as a child whenever he wanted something. "Look, I know Mom and Dad went overboard, but you have to understand our position. Chloe's parents are traditional, they're judging me for not having established roots. If I could just have your house for a few years until we get settled, my house isn't available for temporary borrowing, Liam. Buy your own property like everyone else." "But you're my sister. Family should support each other during important life transitions. You've been in transition for your entire adult life. At some point, you need to actually transition into responsibility." He hung up after calling me a few creative insults. Sarah resumed contact 3 days later, her approach shifting to manipulation. She called from her garden. I could hear birds chirping in the background like nothing had happened. "Your father's health is declining. The stress of this situation is affecting his heart condition. If something happens to him because you refuse to help your brother, you'll carry that guilt forever." David's health issues started long before this. Don't weaponize his medical condition to manipulate me. How can you be so cold? I raised you better than this. You raised me to believe that hard work and independence mattered. I'm simply applying those lessons you supposedly taught me. She hung up without another word. The silence felt both liberating and devastating. They'd attended every school event, supported my education, celebrated my early career successes. How had we arrived at this point where they valued Liam's comfort over my autonomy? Work became my refuge. The firm had just landed a contract designing a new performing arts center in the city center, and I threw myself into it with desperate intensity. My colleague, Alex, noticed my distraction during a presentation when I accidentally called a client by the wrong name. "Everything okay? You've seemed off since the awards ceremony." "Family drama. Nothing I can't handle." The video went viral, you know. Over 2 million views last I checked. People are surprisingly invested in the architecture community's personal scandals. My stomach dropped. I'd avoided social media, hoping it would fade. Instead, strangers across the country were debating my family obligations in comment sections. Some sided with my parents, others defended my right to boundaries. Architecture blogs picked up the story, turning my private nightmare into professional gossip. Mr. Thompson, the firm's senior partner, called me into his office. He'd mentored me since I joined as a junior designer. "I'm not going to pry into your personal situation, Emily, but I need to know if this will impact your work. The Performing Arts Center project is too important to derail." "It won't. I'm handling it." "Good. For what it's worth, I think you're making the right choice. I had similar issues with my family when I was younger. Sometimes the people who raised you can become the ones holding you back." His unexpected support nearly broke my composure. I'd spent weeks feeling like maybe I was wrong, maybe selfish. Maybe I should just give them what they wanted to restore peace. But peace obtained through surrender isn't really peace at all. Liam's wedding invitation arrived 6 weeks after the incident. The envelope contained a formal card and a handwritten note from Chloe. "I hope you reconsider your position before our special day. Liam speaks so fondly of his sister, and it would break his heart if you weren't there to celebrate. Family is everything, especially during life's milestone moments. We'd love to move past this unfortunate disagreement and start fresh." The manipulation was obvious, yet somehow still effective. I'd watched Liam grow from a chubby toddler into a struggling adult. Despite everything, part of me still wanted to protect him. But enabling his refusal to take responsibility wasn't protection. It was harm disguised as love. I didn't RSVP. The wedding happened without me. Social media photos showed my parents beaming. Liam looked genuinely happy. Chloe's gown probably cost more than my monthly mortgage. The reception venue was extravagant. My absence apparently created significant drama. Relatives posted vague comments about some people who abandoned family. Sarah changed her profile picture to one of her with Liam and Chloe, pointedly cropping me out of what was originally an older family photo. 3 months after the wedding, an envelope arrived from a genetic testing company I'd never contacted. My name and address were correct, but I hadn't ordered a DNA test. Confusion gave way to curiosity. The results inside redefined my entire existence. According to the comprehensive genetic analysis, I shared no biological connection with either of my parents. 0% DNA match with Sarah, 0% with David. The report suggested I'd been either adopted or the result of some fertility arrangement, though no documentation existed. My hands shook while reading through the detailed breakdown. The test had been ordered by someone named Eleanor Sutherland, whose name meant nothing to me. A letter accompanied the scientific results, written in careful cursive on cream-colored stationery. "Dear Emily, I've spent 31 years wondering if you were alive and healthy. Your birth mother, my daughter Melanie, passed away when you were 6 months old. She placed you for adoption with a couple who promised openness and ongoing contact. Instead, they disappeared completely. I've been searching ever since. The DNA database finally connected us. I understand this news arrives unexpectedly, but I hope you'll consider meeting me. You have an entire family who has never stopped thinking about you. With love and hope, your grandmother, Eleanor." The letter fell from my trembling fingers. Everything suddenly made horrible sense. Why Liam always received preferential treatment. Why my achievements never seemed to satisfy my parents. Why I'd never quite felt like I truly belonged. They'd raised me out of obligation, not love. Or perhaps they'd loved me once, but resentment gradually replaced affection as I grew older. I contacted Eleanor the next morning. Her voice cracked with emotion when she answered, as though she'd been waiting by the phone for this exact call. We talked for 3 hours straight, piecing together the truth my parents had hidden for decades. Melanie had been 19 when she got pregnant. The father disappeared. Eleanor supported her daughter, but complications during delivery led to a fatal infection. Melanie's final wish was that her baby be placed with a loving family who would honor her memory through openness. My parents, no, the people who raised me, had agreed to those terms. They'd struggled with infertility, desperate for a child. But once the adoption finalized, they cut all contact with Eleanor. They moved states, changed phone numbers, and essentially stole me from the only biological family I had left. I hired investigators over the years, Eleanor explained, her voice heavy with old grief. But closed adoptions were nearly impossible to penetrate legally. When consumer DNA testing became available, I uploaded my genetic profile to every database, hoping you might test yourself someday. I never imagined I'd need to order a test on your behalf using publicly available information. How did you even find me to send the test? The video of your award ceremony. Your name appeared on screen. I searched everything about you and found your address through professional licensing records. I know it was invasive, but I'd reached the end of my rope. I'm 73 now. I couldn't die without at least trying one more time. Tears streamed down my face as this stranger, my grandmother, shared stories about Melanie. My birth mother had been an artist who painted landscapes. Funny, kind, fiercely independent. She loved jazz music and vegetarian food. She'd wanted to travel the world before settling down to teach art. Eleanor sent photos. Melanie's smile mirrored my own. Her eyes held the same shape, the same slight upturn. Looking at her face felt like finally understanding why I'd always felt slightly out of focus in family photos. I contacted an attorney named Jessica Hayes, who specialized in adoption law. She reviewed my case with growing anger. This was a clear violation of the adoption agreement. Open adoptions are legally binding contracts. They breached every term and essentially committed fraud. You have grounds for several lawsuits. I don't want money. I want answers. Then we'll demand answers, and maybe the threat of legal action will motivate honesty. The following weeks brought unexpected revelations. While sorting through old documents, I discovered a box tucked behind holiday decorations in the attic. Inside were faded photographs I'd never seen. Pictures of a woman holding an infant. The woman's face matched the photos Eleanor had sent. Melanie had been holding me. More photographs showed Sarah and David looking uncomfortable as they accepted me from a social worker. Their expressions held none of the joy associated with bringing home a child. Instead, they appeared almost resigned, as though fulfilling an obligation. A journal buried beneath the photos contained entries in Sarah's handwriting. The earliest entries documented their fertility struggles and mounting desperation, but later passages revealed something darker. The birth mother's family keeps calling. They expect updates and photos. This arrangement feels less like adoption and more like extended babysitting. We wanted our own child, not someone else's legacy to maintain. Another entry from 3 months after my arrival, Emily cries differently than I expected. Sometimes I look at her and see only the stranger who gave birth to her. Is it wrong that I resent these feelings? Is it wrong that I wish she were truly ours? The journal explained their decision to move states and cut contact. They convinced themselves that clean breaks were healthier for everyone. They'd rationalized their actions as protecting me from confusion about my identity. The self-deception was breathtaking in its completeness. I photographed every page and forwarded them to Jessica. Her response came within the hour. This documentation strengthens your position significantly. It demonstrates premeditation and acknowledgement that their actions violated the agreement. Keep the originals in a secure location. Confronting them with this evidence became my next objective. But before I could arrange another meeting, David showed up at my design firm unannounced. He looked older, his shoulders hunched with a weariness not visible before. Security called up to confirm if I'd accept the visitor. Part of me wanted to refuse, to let him experience the rejection he'd inflicted on Eleanor for decades, but curiosity won out. He sat across from my desk, studying the awards and certifications. The silence stretched until he finally spoke. "Sarah doesn't know I'm here. She'd be furious." "What do you want?" "To explain." "Not to excuse, but to explain." He rubbed his face tiredly. "We were desperate for a child. Years of treatments, failed attempts, emotional devastation. When the opportunity for adoption came through, we thought it was a miracle. But the open adoption terms felt intrusive. We wanted to be parents, not caretakers for someone else's grandchild. So, you stole me. We made a terrible decision based on fear and selfishness. Every year that passed made it harder to correct. By the time you were 5, telling you the truth seemed cruel. By the time you were 10, we'd convinced ourselves the lies were protecting you. You convinced yourselves you were the victims in a situation where you held all the power." He nodded slowly. "Your mother struggled more than I did. She could never quite bond with you the way she bonded with Liam later. When he was born, everything felt different. Natural. The way she'd always imagined motherhood would feel. That comparison poisoned how she treated you. Liam is your biological son." "Yes. We'd given up on having biological children. Sarah got pregnant unexpectedly when you were 4. His arrival changed the entire family dynamic. Suddenly, you were the reminder of our previous failure, not the solution to our problems." The confession hung between us like toxic smoke. He'd essentially admitted that their favoritism stemmed from viewing me as a defective substitute for the biological child they'd eventually produced. The cruelty was almost clinical in its honesty. "Does Liam know all of this?" "Some, not all. We told him you were adopted after you discovered the truth, but we minimized our role in cutting off Eleanor. He doesn't know how deliberately we excluded her or how we prioritized his needs over yours because of biology. You came here to unburden yourself, to feel better about your choices by confessing them. I'm not a priest offering absolution. I came here because you deserve to understand why things happened the way they did. Whether you forgive us or not is entirely your decision. But I wanted you to know that our failures had nothing to do with your worth as a person." His words carried a finality that suggested this would be our last private conversation. He stood slowly, leaving a business card on my desk with a phone number. "If you ever want to talk again, that's my direct line. Your mother's condition is progressing. Within a few years, she won't remember any of this. I'll be the only one left carrying these memories." After he left, I sat in my office processing everything. The explanation didn't justify their actions, but it illuminated the twisted logic that had governed my childhood. They'd wanted to erase my origins and build a fantasy where I was wholly theirs. When biology gave them what adoption couldn't, I became expendable. Jessica sent a formal letter to Sarah and David, demanding they provide all adoption documentation and explain their deception. Their attorney responded with a brief statement claiming I was being ungrateful and manipulated by strangers seeking financial gain. The hypocrisy was breathtaking. They demanded I surrender my house to their biological son while hiding that I wasn't actually related to any of them. Every guilt trip, every manipulation, every comparison to Liam had been built on a foundation of lies. I scheduled a meeting at a neutral location, a coffee shop in the city center. Jessica accompanied me for legal protection. Sarah and David arrived 15 minutes late, both radiating defensive hostility. Sarah spoke first, her voice tight. "This is ridiculous. We raised you, fed you, paid for your education. You lied to me for 31 years. You cut off my biological grandmother, violated your adoption agreement, and treated me like a second-class family member because I wasn't actually yours. David's face flushed red. We gave you a good life. Melanie was a troubled girl who couldn't have cared for you properly. Melanie died. She didn't abandon me. You stole me from the only blood relative I had left and then spent decades making me feel like I was never quite enough. Don't be dramatic. You had everything you needed. Accept honesty. Accept equality. Accept the family that actually wanted me. The coffee shop patrons pretended not to listen while clearly absorbing every word. Sarah's hands clenched around her untouched latte. If you pursue legal action, you'll destroy whatever relationship remains between us. I laughed bitterly. What relationship? The one where you demanded I give Liam my house? The one where you smashed my award in front of hundreds of people? That relationship is already destroyed. Liam is your brother. Liam is your son. I'm just someone you acquired through paperwork. There's a difference, apparently. They left shortly after, David muttering about ingratitude and Sarah dabbing theatrical tears. Jessica squeezed my shoulder gently. You handled that with remarkable composure. Many people would have shouted. I've spent 31 years trying to earn love that was never actually available. I'm tired of shouting into the void. Meeting Eleanor in person happened 2 weeks later. She lived in a modest house in a quiet rural area, surrounded by Melanie's paintings and carefully preserved belongings. Seeing my birth mother's artwork was like discovering a part of myself I'd never known existed. The landscapes featured bold colors and emotional brushstrokes that felt viscerally familiar. Eleanor embraced me carefully, as though afraid I might disappear again. She prepared Melanie's favorite meal, vegetarian lasagna with homemade bread. We sat at her kitchen table while she shared story after story about Melanie's life. She wanted you so much. The pregnancy was unexpected but never unwanted. She used to talk to you constantly, telling you about all the places she'd take you, all the things she'd teach you. When complications arose during delivery, her last coherent words were, "Promise she'll have a good life." I've carried that promise like a weight ever since. You did everything you could. They're the ones who broke their promises. I should have fought harder, but adoption law heavily favored adoptive parents back then. By the time I gathered resources for a legal challenge, you disappeared completely. You found me eventually. That matters more than the lost years. We spent the entire weekend together. Eleanor introduced me to second cousins, family friends, and neighbors who'd known Melanie. Everyone had stories to share, memories to offer, pieces of a puzzle I'd never known was incomplete. For the first time in my life, I sat at a dinner table where nobody compared me unfavorably to someone else, where my achievements were celebrated without qualifications, where I simply belonged. Liam contacted me 3 months after the coffee shop confrontation. His voice carried a hesitancy I'd rarely heard. Chloe left. She said I was too dependent on our parents and had no ambition. I guess she expected me to magically become successful without actually doing any work. I'm sorry you're going through that. Are you, though? You never approved of her. I never approved of how everyone expected me to finance your relationship, but I didn't want your marriage to fail. Silence stretched between us. Finally, Liam spoke again, his words tumbling out quickly. Mom told me the truth about your adoption. I didn't know. All these years, I thought. I don't know what I thought, but I didn't know they'd lied to you about everything. Would it have changed how you treated me? I want to say yes, but honestly, probably not. They raised me to believe I was special and you were just there. I never questioned why I got different treatment. I'm starting to realize how messed up that was. Personal growth is uncomfortable. Welcome to the process. Are you ever going to forgive them? Forgive us? I'm not carrying around anger or resentment. I'm just done participating in a dynamic that required me to shrink so others could expand. That's not the same as forgiveness or reconciliation. Can I ask something? If I actually got my life together, worked a real job, supported myself, would you want a relationship with me? Like actual siblings, instead of whatever weird thing we had before? His question surprised me with its sincerity. Liam had been manipulative and entitled, but he'd also been shaped by the same people who'd hidden my entire identity. Maybe he deserved a chance to grow beyond their influence. Ask me again in a year, after you've proven to yourself that you can maintain stability without their constant intervention. Fair enough. The Performing Arts Center project reached completion 18 months after the awards ceremony incident. Opening night featured speeches from city officials, donors, and the design team. When my turn came, I spoke about the importance of building spaces where people could discover their authentic selves through creative expression. Eleanor sat in the front row, beaming with pride. Several of Melanie's cousins attended, offering congratulations and genuine warmth. My new family had embraced me completely, filling spaces I hadn't realized were empty. The former people in my life remained distant. Sarah sent a brief email acknowledging the center's completion, but making no mention of wanting to see it. David never reached out. Liam checked in occasionally with updates about his job as a property manager and his budding relationship with someone who apparently valued self-sufficiency. My design firm promoted me to senior designer, citing my dedication and innovative approach. Mr. Thompson handed me a replacement plaque from the Continental Design Achievement Award. This one personally engraved, for Emily, whose integrity proved stronger than crystal. May your designs continue to reflect the authenticity you've brought to every challenge. I displayed it prominently, a reminder that the opinions of people who couldn't value me honestly had never actually mattered. The house they demanded I surrender remained mine, filled with memories of hard work and personal achievement. Every room told a story of independence, creativity, and refusing to compromise my worth for conditional acceptance. Eleanor visited often, always bringing fresh flowers and stories about Melanie. We developed traditions, Sunday brunches, monthly museum visits, annual trips to Melanie's favorite coastal town. She taught me to paint, though my landscapes lacked Melanie's natural talent. The effort mattered more than the results. Your mother would be so proud of who you've become, Eleanor said during one of our painting sessions. She always believed you'd do something meaningful with your life. I wish I could have known her. You carry her spirit. The determination, the creativity, the refusal to let others define your worth. Those are Melanie's gifts, passed down through more than just genetics. The viral video eventually faded from public consciousness, replaced by newer scandals. Occasionally, someone recognized me, but most people had moved on. I didn't mind being forgotten. The attention had been uncomfortable at best. 2 years after the DNA test arrived, I received an unexpected letter from Sarah. The handwriting looked shaky, less confident. Emily, I've been diagnosed with early-stage dementia. Your father insists I write this while I still can. We handled your adoption poorly. We let fear and insecurity poison what should have been simple love. You deserved better than we gave you. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know that my failures were never your fault. You were always enough. We just couldn't see past our own inadequacy. I hope you found happiness despite us. With regret, Sarah. The letter sat on my kitchen counter for 3 days. Part of me wanted to respond with anger, listing every hurt. Another part recognized the courage required to admit such comprehensive failure. Eventually, I wrote back, Sarah, thank you for your honesty. I hope your treatment goes well. I found my family and built a life I'm proud of. Take care of yourself. Short, polite, final. I owed nothing more. Liam successfully maintained his job for over a year, eventually earning a promotion to senior property manager. He sent occasional texts, never demanding anything or making excuses. When he asked me for coffee after 18 months, I agreed. He looked different, older, more grounded. The entitled smugness had been replaced by something resembling humility. I've been seeing a therapist, working through a lot of family stuff. She helped me understand how toxic our whole dynamic was. Good for you. Personal growth isn't easy. I'm sorry for everything. The house thing, the wedding, the years of taking advantage. I was raised to believe I deserved special treatment without earning it. Unlearning that has been brutal. Apology acknowledged. Is there any chance we could start over? Not as the siblings we were forced to be, but as two people who share a complicated history and might actually like each other. I considered his question carefully. Forgiveness didn't require a relationship, but perhaps a relationship could exist without complete forgiveness. We were both different people now, shaped by consequences and growth. We can try, but this time we build something equal. No favors, no expectations, no family baggage weighing everything down. Deal. Our new relationship developed slowly, carefully. Coffee meetings turned into occasional dinners. He asked about my work with genuine interest rather than competitive resentment. I learned about his clients and property management challenges. We discussed neutral topics initially, gradually building toward more vulnerable conversations. Do you ever miss them? Liam asked during one dinner. Mom and Dad, I mean. I miss who I thought they were, but those people never actually existed. I was mourning a fantasy. I'm starting to realize the same thing. Without their constant validation, I had to figure out who I actually was. Turns out I'm pretty different from who they wanted me to be. Welcome to autonomy. It's terrifying and liberating in equal measure. 3 years after the award ceremony incident, I completed my largest project yet, a community center designed specifically for underprivileged youth to access arts education. The building featured adaptive spaces that could transform from painting studios to dance floors to music rooms. Natural light flooded every corner through strategically placed windows. The dedication ceremony featured speeches from community leaders and testimonials from young people who had already benefited from the programs. When my turn came to speak, I focused on creating spaces where everyone feels valued regardless of their background. Architecture isn't just about buildings. It's about shaping environments where people can become their most authentic selves. This center represents my belief that everyone deserves spaces designed with care, attention, and respect. Eleanor wiped tears throughout my speech. Liam attended with his new partner, both applauding enthusiastically. Several colleagues came to show support. The community members whose neighborhood now housed this beautiful facility thanked me repeatedly. My former parents weren't there. Sarah's dementia had progressed, and David focused entirely on her care. According to Liam, they occasionally asked about me but never attempted direct contact. Their absence didn't hurt anymore. I built a life filled with people who chose me actively rather than accepted me conditionally. The community center won several design awards. Interview requests flooded in, each one asking about my architectural philosophy. I spoke about how personal experience shapes design choices, how understanding rejection can inform more inclusive spaces, how authenticity matters more than approval. One interviewer asked directly about the viral video. That incident fundamentally changed your public profile. Do you have any regrets about how you handled that situation? None. Setting boundaries usually looks unreasonable to people who benefited from your lack of them. I'd rather be called selfish by people who wanted to exploit me than compromise my integrity for their comfort. The quote circulated widely on social media, resonating with people facing their own family conflicts. Messages poured in from strangers sharing their stories of choosing themselves over toxic expectations. Others criticized me for abandoning family. I learned to accept that public opinion would always be divided. Their judgment didn't define my worth. Eleanor passed away peacefully 5 years after we'd reunited. She'd lived long enough to see me thrive, to witness my success, to know that Melanie's daughter had found her place. Her funeral filled with people who'd loved her genuinely, including the granddaughter she'd never stopped searching for. Her will left me everything. A house filled with Melanie's artwork, carefully preserved photo albums documenting my birth mother's life, and a letter explaining that she'd always considered these items mine by right. You are Melanie's greatest legacy. These belongings should remain with her daughter. Build a beautiful life, Emily. You've already made us both so proud. With eternal love, Eleanor. I converted one room in my house into a gallery for Melanie's paintings. The landscapes brightened every morning, their bold colors and emotional brushwork a constant reminder of where I came from and who I had chosen to become. Liam visited occasionally, our relationship settled into comfortable sibling affection. He'd married his partner in a small ceremony, explicitly requesting no drama and no family obligations. They purchased their own modest home, taking pride in their genuine accomplishment. Do you ever wonder how things might have been different? He asked during one visit, studying Melanie's paintings. If they'd been honest from the beginning? Sometimes. But I can't change the past. I can only build the future I want. You've built something pretty amazing. The community center, your career, this beautiful home. You did it all despite them, not because of them. Maybe that's the point. Sometimes the greatest gift toxic people give us is the motivation to prove we never needed them anyway. Years passed. My career flourished. My relationship with Liam evolved into genuine friendship. The architecture community recognized my work consistently. But the greatest success wasn't measured in awards or acclaim. It was measured in authenticity, in knowing my worth wasn't determined by people who'd hidden my identity and demanded my resources, in understanding that family should be a source of support, not obligation, in building a life so fulfilling that their absence created relief rather than loss. The crystal plaque, the replacement Mr. Thompson had given me, remained displayed in my office. Colleagues often asked about the inscription, prompting me to share abbreviated versions of the full story. Integrity over crystal, I'd explain simply. Sometimes the most important design project is your own life. And sometimes the best construction involves removing foundations that were never solid to begin with. The viral video still existed online, preserved forever. Occasionally, someone recognized me. Most conversations followed similar patterns. Wow, you're that architect. Whatever happened with your family? I found my real family. Built a career I'm proud of. Moved forward without them. Do you regret refusing to give them the house? Not for a single moment. That house represents every sacrifice, every choice, every boundary I maintained. Surrendering it would have been surrendering myself. 10 years after the awards ceremony incident, the design firm announced its new partnership structure. My name appeared on the company letterhead alongside Mr. Thompson's and 2 other senior designers. We transformed from a regional firm into a nationally recognized practice specializing in community-focused design. The celebration party featured speeches, toasts, and presentations. When my turn came, I spoke about the importance of designing both buildings and lives with intentionality. The best structures, whether architectural or personal, require strong foundations, clear boundaries, and authentic materials. Anything built on deception eventually crumbles. But what we create with honesty endures. Liam attended with his family, now including a toddler daughter named Melanie. He'd asked permission before choosing the name, explaining that he wanted to honor the truth rather than perpetuate comfortable lies. I'd agreed, touched by his desire to acknowledge the complexity of our shared history. She should know where she comes from, Liam had explained. The real story, not the sanitized version. Truth matters more than comfort. My niece would grow up hearing stories about her great-grandmother, Melanie, the artist who'd loved deeply despite difficult circumstances. She'd learned that family isn't always defined by biology, that integrity matters more than approval, and that sometimes choosing yourself is the most generous gift you can offer the world. The house they demanded I surrender eventually became more than just my residence. I converted the finished basement into a design studio where I mentored young architects from underserved communities, offering the guidance and support I'd had to fight for myself. Students came weekly, learning not just about architectural principles but about maintaining authenticity in a profession that often prioritized profit over purpose. "Why do you do this?" one student asked during a late-night work session. "Mentor people for free when you could charge thousands?" "Because someone once told me that my success was less important than someone else's comfort. I'm proving that was never true, and I'm making sure the next generation knows their worth isn't negotiable." The sun set through my carefully designed windows, casting geometric shadows across Melanie's paintings. Outside, my garden bloomed with careful cultivation. Inside, my life reflected choices made from strength rather than fear. They'd wanted me to give up everything for people who'd given me nothing but conditional acceptance and hidden truths. Instead, I built something better. A life where authenticity mattered more than approval. Where boundaries protected rather than excluded, where family meant chosen connection rather than obligatory submission. The crystal plaque caught the fading light. Its inscription still clearly visible, for Emily, whose integrity proved stronger than crystal, stronger than manipulation, stronger than the weight of expectations I'd never agreed to carry, just strong enough to build a life worth living. After all this, what would you have done in my shoes?